Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another Secret Sunday session today. Today, I'm joined by Aaron Zimmerle. And to start us off before we get into all the nitty-gritty stuff, Aaron, who are you and what it is that you do?
Yeah, good question, Ash. Probably commonly referred to more as Zimmo nowadays than anything else. I don't think anyone calls me Aaron except my mother.
Sorry.
No, it's it'll probably tie more into the topics we'll talk about. I think I was about 15 years of age, and was a kid that wanted to do well at school and sport. Generally kept my nose out of trouble, but lacked a little bit of confidence. And then as things grew, as you do when you get to about grade 10, I think I'd been nicknamed Zimmo by that stage. And when I was Zimmo, I felt like I was confident. I felt more popular. So that almost gave me the vehicle in which to build myself. And that was just in the name alone. So yeah, it's funny. Who are you? That's a real good question. If I told you my middle name was Chandler, I would tell you that I used to be pretty embarrassed by it. But then Friends became such a cool, popular show with Chandler Bing. And then I started to use that for a while because basically it got a laugh. So that was good.
Yeah.
Life story, just had a great life. Can't complain in any regard. My dad was Australian from Toowoomba. Mum is Canadian. They met while she was backpacking here and then, headed home. Dad followed. And they had myself and my brother. So I was born in Canada, lived there till 9. And then they decided that the best thing for us as two boys was to live in Australia and just experience the Australian lifestyle. Definitely involve the outdoors and sport and such to help us sort of grow into real men. Moved to Coolangatta, lived on top of the hill at Rutledge there, and went to Coolangatta State and moved on from that to Palm Beach Crumb, the school that I now teach at. So I think in total, my life of 44 years this year, 24 of those years have been spent in the one location at Palm Beach Crumb there as a student for 6 and a teacher for 18. Some people think that's boring because it's 24 years in the one place, but the in-between time, I've been very lucky. I went to Sydney to play footy, went to university there, then travelled overseas, lived in Japan for 3 years in that time. So lots of other countries around Asia and so forth. Been to America, travelled 31 states of America in a beat up old van, did summer camp over there in America. And that probably shaped my path more so than anything because that's where I found out that I actually like working with young people. I was studying to be a teacher, but was only doing that because my mum said I'd be good at it. When I was in America, you had to live with the kids in the cabins, 9-year-olds and so on. You dealt with issues like people wetting the bed, and then you got to go have great fun with them through the day where you're out wakeboarding and water skiing and such. So yeah, I'm like, this being a teacher and eventually becoming a parent, it's like, there's lots of good stuff. There's all the stuff they don't tell you about. So I got a taste of that at the tender age of 21, which I think was great because I realized that at the end of the day, I just liked helping young people. And fast forward to where I am now, become a high school teacher, become a coach, started coaching a 13s team at Crumb Eagles, which was like my junior club. Did that just as a volunteer, had no connection to the club, just thought I'd help out and learn to coach. And then down the track, it took me as far as coaching Queensland Cup. I had 5 years of doing that and being involved with yourself and your wonderful family. And I've been lucky enough to coach the Australian students, the Canadian national side, which is the Wolverines, and win a schoolboy national final. So, yeah, it's been fun.
A very long history, and I'm sure you've learnt a lot along the way and grown as a person. But I want to take you back to one of your first comments that you made was when your parents brought you to Australia and then put you into sport. And you said to make you a man. Now, is that almost, I guess, an underlying value that men have to be in sport to toughen up or to become an ideal man?
Well, that's how my dad would have said it. God love him. He was a great man and did everything he could for us. He grew up in a different generation where you had to be tough. And I think whether it was the Canadian side in us. Canadians are renowned for saying sorry and thank you, so they're a little bit nice, a little bit soft, in a good way. He just thought that, sport was a vehicle for us, probably more so to test your own mindset, test your limits of what you were able to achieve. And it wasn't one particular sport. Like rugby league was the game that he loved watching, but my first sport was a little athletics, and then that touched on to nippers, and then I played Aussie rules for 5 years. So, if you go down to the Coolangatta Blues, you'll find photos of Zimmo, skinny Zimmo, wearing a very, very odd-looking singlet, and feet bigger than most other parts of my body. I didn't have much shoulders or much legs, but my feet were huge. And I was like, okay, Aussie rules. You just run lots, chase the ball, and do your best.
Yeah.
So that was my first initiation, maybe into contact and physicality, and where you would get hurt, I guess, to play a sport. And I enjoyed it. So at 15, I converted to rugby league. Had some success with it, went through with a couple of famous people like Benny Eichen and such. And then at 17 was playing local first grade. So I look back on it. It's a wonderful game, rugby league. It does have a physical toll. So anyone that I've ever played with or coached who is brave enough, no matter the level, no matter their ability, who walks out on a field, I feel like I have that degree of respect for them, that they're willing to play. They're willing to go out there knowing it comes at a cost. It does hurt.
Do you think it not only comes at a cost to their physical health, but also their mental health? I think we hear a lot about players, even in the NRL, that kind of get lost in the system and end up in news reports and end up, I guess, going off the rails a bit. Do you think that pressure and the standard to play at such a high performing level does get to players more mentally than sometimes the physical impact?
It does now, obviously, because it's a high profile occupation. Like I think if you just do a cross comparison, if you looked at professional sports people, not rugby league, like we have national level swimmers who are having issues now, in the courts and things like that. If you look at people who are movie stars or rock stars, there's some well documented histories there of them with alcohol and drug and relationship issues and such. It just is the natural thing that occurs for human beings as a coping mechanism. So I think if you put anyone under mental stress, anxiety and so forth in a permanent basis, like we're talking saturating them with it, eventually they're going to look for an outlet for some type of relief or some type of feel-good enjoyment in the moment. And obviously that's probably not something that is the best decision, but they're not thinking forward. They're just thinking now. And it's pretty natural that that's how human beings deal with stress and anxiety. Our thing that we could be better with is that while we're teaching these kids to follow their abilities, to perform well, we need to also teach them about character and inner strength. And, one of the words that gets bandied around, but I'm still a huge fan of, is resilience. No one wins all the time, Ash. You're never going to be on top forever or, permanently. It's win today, lose tomorrow. And you have to understand that that's life. If you're an animal, you can have one day that's beautiful and the next day you get killed by a predator, or you lose one of your cubs, but they don't seem to get hung up on that moment. They just keep moving forward. I think the sports people who tend to fare the best are the ones that can keep moving forward.
Why do you think it is that we stay and focus on that moment where there is such a great loss? Like, why is it so hard for us to move on?
Human nature. We're taught to grieve for things that we think are important to us, and duly so. You lose a loved one, you don't want to forget them. But at the same time, I'm sure that if there was an ability to communicate to your lost loved one, they would tell you, thank you for missing me, but move on with your life, because they love you back in reverse. So there's a podcast I listen to that a huge fan of. And basically it explains that people who live in the past of yesterday generally live with regret. And that regret is, I should have done something, I could have done something, I don't have that anymore. That regret compounds itself over time and eventually can lead to things like depression, because you just get stuck in that cycle. I don't have it, I made that mistake. Likewise, our high achievers also have the problem. Our high achievers are always planning for tomorrow because they set goals and they follow the structures that I guess that so many people advocate. And they talk about, this is what I need to do to be a professional sports person, or to be rich, or to be happy. You know, you're on this path. And then something goes wrong. You have an injury, you have a sidetrack, and they feel like, oh my God, I failed, it's not going to happen. So those that are too much forward thinking end up with anxiety. You're always worried about how every moment is going to affect tomorrow. He summarizes it really simply. He just says, live in the now. Enjoy the minute that you have with the people that you are with as much as humanly possible. And that then will cascade into the next minute. And before you know it, you tend to be happy most of the time. And when that little blip comes along, you're like, okay, that was now, but that now is gone. So next minute, I'm good to go.
Yeah. So, wow. How do you help players and even young people that kind of struggle to get their head around it and be so proactive in that space to live in the now?
Good question. Your own experiences, I'm sure you've felt that as well. I just think you find something that gives them simple joy. What's something that, regardless of what else is going on in your life, makes you feel good? You know, and that might be that walk along the beach where you just watch a sunrise, you see the ocean, there's a dolphin out there. It's the opportunity that as you walk there, you're going to come across an old friend, have a hug, have a chat, just real human experiences. And I think, you know, everyone has their own thing. It could be music, it could be exercise, it could be meditation, but whatever you know gives you joy, then keep using that. It's no different to confidence. You know, if you're good at something, then it's not to showcase it to the world. If you're good at something, go do it. You know, if you can dance, dance. If you can sing, sing, because you feel good that you know you do that well. I feel confident. So when the next challenge comes my way, I'm like, oh, I'm not sure, but I did this other thing pretty well. So, okay, I'll give it a go. It's that cascading effect where you build momentum in your life of happiness and confidence, and that just allows you to roll over those flat spots.
Yeah, wow. Do you, in your experience, have you found that a lot of players and even young men in teaching doubt themselves a lot?
I think it's human nature, and it's questionable where we are now in coaching, teaching, parenting, and all the rest. You know, I ask myself all the time with my own kids, we want everyone to succeed and to grow and become better, and that's fine, that's admirable, but in doing so, then we all become critical. So everything that is said, everything that is done, every action that is played, someone is judging it, going, well, that was good, but you could do this to make it better. I understand why you want it for self-improvement, but now that takes some of the enjoyment of just being good or enjoying away. It would be, for me personally, it would be a fault that I have to check myself on, because my mindset is to analyze something to try and break it down. When I've lost, I've made the mistake, I know this as a coach, that I've gone away and tried to work harder and to break it down even more so to find an answer. When over time I've learned I could have just throw that one in the bin, fail fast, and go have some fun with the group, and the energy and the feeling of the atmosphere and that probably would have taken care of the problem regardless. So,
do you think it's critical to have fun in sporting environments that are so high pressure?
Without doubt. And I'm sure that if you go through any of the great sporting organizations, if you even think back to your own teams or whatever level that you played at, you had coaches that you would have learnt lots from, and you will always appreciate that. But then you would have had coaches that you just wanted to go to training for because it was fun. And then you revert back to that child, that inner child, where when it's fun, you don't feel tired. You know, when it's fun, you don't care how long it goes for. You could train for 2 hours and you'd be like, really? Do we have to? Does it have to finish now? Teaching's no different. I think when you teach a subject, you know, like our method of education is so much stand and deliver. The teachers that you probably appreciate the most were the ones that they either made it relatable, or they had a story to tell, or they had a sense of humor. They had a way to make it fun. And funny enough, they're the lessons 10 years after leaving you still remember.
I think in the Australian culture, where very much we work hard and we're tough. And when it comes to sport, we have a really high standard for our young people, where we almost, a lot of kids end up burning out at such a young age because they're doing representative football, they're doing club football, then they're doing school footy. And it all becomes so much they fall out of love for whatever sport that they're playing. Do you think that amount of sport is too much for kids at a young age and is too much pressure?
Yeah, it's a $50 million question, in that where if you don't involve yourself to some degree at the higher level, so like playing those more challenging teams and competitions and such, then you just don't develop the skill sets and the mindset. Because, you know, you have to be to survive in those worlds. If you of getting to the highest level, that's the challenge. You know, you have to do an apprenticeship to get, which is why I guess it's still such a rarity for people to get there. You know, you can have someone who is a Queensland Australian schoolboy that never goes on to play a game of NRL. And yet then there's someone there who didn't make any of those representative teams, but in the background was driven by the fact that they'd missed out, plugging away down at the park, practicing their own skills on their own, doing as much or more than the other person. And they're the ones that realize their dream and get to play it as a profession. Eastern Bloc countries and so forth, they would look at us and say, well, our kids still don't work that hard. You know, there's stories about what the Eastern Blocs used to do for their gymnastic routines and their swimmers. And then please compare sports. You know, someone who plays a team sport has the interaction with others and the variation of kicking, passing, running, and so on in their training. Be a swimmer. Do 2 hours up and down a black line in the morning, and then turn up and do it again in the afternoon, 6 days a week. Yeah. For a sport that financially really doesn't offer you much. You have the glory of representing your country. If you're lucky and pick up sponsors, then that'll help you financially. But you might live at home till you're 25 as well, just so that you can survive. Yeah. The modern world is, if we're going to pay large incomes in sport, then people have to work hard. And I guess that's only fair, because someone who can catch and kick a ball will earn more than someone who can save a life as a doctor. Now, that doesn't seem proportionate, really, when you think about who has more value in the world. But sports people provide hope. They provide stories of character and success, of overcoming odds. Their role in keeping society positive and, you know, inspiring and uniting us is important. It gives people heroes.
Yeah. Wow. I actually really love that. I've never looked at it in that perspective of, I guess, giving the community hope, and it really does. And I think we saw that last year with COVID, how much people did miss sport, and even that social gathering to watch your favorite team play or watch your favorite sport. And when that was lacking, the rise of just feeling a bit depressed and feeling lonely because you didn't have that connection across the screen.
Yeah. If you trace the origins of sport to the Rome forth, they created it for the poor. It was for the people who were so worrying about up because they were struggling. Well, when they gave them entertainment, they had a hero and saw someone else in the odds. they went home and thought, well, maybe I can as well. I think, as you said, Ash, which is a great observation. Last year proved it more so than any. The governments realised that while they made exceptions for sporting people, and everyone's like, well, why would you? Because it gives people a distraction from the fear of a worldwide pandemic that potentially could kill us or kill your loved ones. It's like, well, now I have something else that just takes my mind away from it for a short period of time. In that period, I get lost and I get to escape the sadness of reality. Not saying that it makes them superior to anyone else. I think that's when you asked me that original question about the ones that get in trouble. The ones who succeed and do it right and stay away from trouble, I would tell you almost entirely that they are just naturally humble and unselfish people, whether that's from their upbringing or the experiences that they've had in their sport. And some might start out not that way and become more that way as their career develops because they realize the impact they have on others.
Yeah. Do you think there's, with young boys and even players, that there's a large comparison between your performance and your teammates' performance and even your peers, and that pressure of having to compete almost against your other team members?
Yep. And that's just a reality, in fact, again, of the professional environment, because, they have a 30+ man squad and you train full time, and in training, your opposition is one of your teammates and you're fighting for a position. It's also what drives excellence, and the mentality that competition is a tool. It's useful for self-improvement. If I tell my boys, my boy ran today and he comes 7th in a final, which is really good for him. And 2 of the kids that finished in front of him were kids from our club. And that's hard because he knows right now that he can't beat them. But I then say to him, well, you get to race those kids every other weekend because they're in your club. They're probably responsible for you making the final and coming 7th. Because you chase them every other Sunday. If you were at a different club, smaller club, not as competitive, you would be winning, but then you would come here and you would get blown away. So competition, we're all at different stages of our development. Some kids are big and strong now, some kids are not. But if your drive is self-improvement, your PB, but then you have someone that you chase, and by chasing them, that drives you to be better or the best that you can be, ultimately then you've become more successful. And if you look at our Australian swim teams and things like that in years gone by, when we've had some legends in it, then there's always someone behind them who was chasing, and then they almost take over. There was Perkins and then there was Hackett, and we thought Perkins was the best, but then Hackett overcomes that and goes on. Yeah, you need someone to chase if you want to reach the pinnacle.
Yeah. And how do young people and men build up their confidence? Because I'm finding a lot, even in my own experience, that there's just so much lack of confidence by men that's sort of hidden underneath. They don't talk about it. They put on a brave face and the toughen up mentality. But when you really dig deep and you start asking questions, there's so much doubt, and it's like an onion underneath. There's just all this doubt and lack of confidence. How do you build that up so that they can be strong mentally as well as physically?
Yeah. Tools, I think you need to have, it's a common catchphrase now, you need to have a growth mindset that even in failing, you are still achieving. So like I said to you before with Zane's run today, we're 7th, but 7th is a success, not a failure. How you frame that, because you haven't been in finals before, so that's a good effort. Then the other thing I would say is when you're thinking about how do I make myself confident about something, you have to build first maybe an attitude of challenge. If you're someone that lives and resides on every win and loss, the most successful sports coaches usually coach at like 45% wins. They're under 50. So when you hear a number like that, more times than not, you lose. Yeah, they're the best. They know more wisdom and methods for finding a win than the normal person walking the street, and they're still on 50%. So how did we get through? Well, not every moment is a life or death battle, and if you can learn something from it, then a loss is still a win. So the quote I love most is, "I never lose. I either win or I learn." And now I can take the 50% that are wins and I keep them, and then 50% of my losses actually are wins as well, because I learned something that made me better. So that I'm looking at 25% loss rate. So that's 75 in total for me. Geez, I'm killing it. If I'm winning at 75%, I'm doing really good.
Yeah, it's good when you bring out the statistics. It kind of makes
that's how I manipulate the numbers to build my own confidence.
Yeah. And do you find, obviously working at Palm Beach Currumbin, and there's been a lot of talented and kids that worked hard and have come through the school into higher and professional leagues, that they have grown, you've seen them grow mentally as well as physically to be ready to play a professional sport?
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, but you would probably quantify that the ones who have succeeded all had a strong inner belief in themselves. One of the feel-good stories I would tell you is Jamal Fogarty at the moment for the Gold Coast Titans. So he's got there late. Cody Walker was another. They got there late. They got there at 25, 26 years of age. But even though they would have had moments, I'm sure, in their career of whether they were going to make it or not, they deeply believed in their own strength and ability. And so when challenged, they were excited by it. A challenge to them is something that they want, not something you're trying to escape. And that was what I wanted to try and get across there before. When you have that challenge mentality, it leads to bravery and leads to a sense of adventure. So even if it's unknown and you would normally avoid it, you're the opposite, and this is not to do anything dangerous, but it says, I'll have a go. So that might be learning to speak another language, traveling to a foreign country, leaving a job that you've been in for a long period of time and trying to cross over into a field that you've never experienced but have an interest in. All of these things are just challenge mentality. You've achieved that, Ash. You think of your journey and where you've come, and you've challenged yourself in areas that you didn't feel confident. And then when you succeed in one of those, I can do anything. I tick this. I never thought I could do. I can do this, so I can do that. I'll have a go at this. And that cascading effect occurs. And when someone sees your confidence, like, you earned that. You built it layer by layer by layer.
Yeah, wow. It's awesome like that. You do. I find that, once you do tick something off, you're like, well, now I can do anything. And then once you start, you're kind of on this never-ending, stopping bucket list that just keeps going. You just keep growing. So it's very effective.
It's a quest, man. Like you make your life a quest, and a quest is a search for treasures. And those treasures can be winning a grand final or making a debut, or achieving something individually in the sporting world. But in real life, it can be finding happiness, finding love, experiencing and seeing things that you never thought were possible. It's a quest. Every day, you're back in the now. Every day becomes one of those treasures.
Yeah. Do you find in your experience, and possibly even recently in teaching, that boys are becoming more stressed about what they look like and their body image?
Definitely in my lifetime, I think I've seen the transition where body image in particular, I think boys always had a degree of vanity. It was maybe just not acceptable, where, like if a boy plucked his eyebrows or spent more than $10 on a haircut, used moisturizer, these are things that he would never discuss. It's like, I'm not going to tell that in front of my friends. Someone will say something. Now, they're a lot more open, that they'll share those things, that they'll talk about the fact that they shave their chest, just whatever it might be. And this is stretching into 30 and 40-year-old men, sort of still on that edge that wasn't the way they were brought up. Body image, though, is the big one, where I know on a negative side, girls always, for a long period of time, have always had these false images, in magazines and movies and so forth. Now it's all social media via Instagram, things like that. But they have these false role models of what you need to look like, who, when you actually go through and do your research, it's photoshopped or it's fake. It's the angle, the lighting, or whatever else, and yet you're trying to make young women attain that image. Men are now there as well. Ours is probably more, even more of a risk, I guess, where to be attractive as a male, you're looking for that perfect physique of muscle and leanness, and the way they do that is they cheat. You talk about anabolic steroids, you talk about diuretics, you talk about all these chemicals that allow them to achieve it. The bit people don't realize is anabolic steroids grow your body, but it changes your brain chemistry. Your personality will alter from that, not to mention the effect it has on your kidneys, and then any other, everyone talks about the secondary stuff, about what it does to your testes and things like that. That's dependent on the person, but you change biologically of who you are if you continue to artificially put hormone and that in your body to look good, so you can walk around with your shirt off. I've always struggled with it because it's something that sits on the edge of professional sport, but those people do it for the difference of 0.01 of a second so they can achieve a life goal. Not that it's right, but I understand the motivation that if you think your competitor's doing it and it's the reason you can't beat them, you might actually, well, no, this is the last thing. This is my 1% I need to do to be a world champion. But to just do it for vanity, I don't think it's worth the risk, because eventually we'll all end up middle-aged and not so beautiful anyway. And it's tough.
The big bill. I totally agree. And I especially agree with men's, even the artificial stuff that's now coming in with your cool sculpting and your liposuction for men as well, planting abs and things like that, that these things are only temporary though. And the health benefits. I mean, if we talk about well-being, which is such a big thing right now, it's kind of band-aiding the whole concept. We're just going for the look of being part of the well-being movement, but not actually doing the work to look after ourselves.
Perfect word there, Ash. Like you're wise beyond your years. The thing that it gets to, I guess, is they aren't willing to sacrifice to do the work, which is, don't drink alcohol, eat a healthy diet, and exercise and so forth. How can I just have the look so that people again think this is who I am? I have the greatest admiration for those people that we see early in the morning when you talk about the 60, 70-year-olds who are out every day still swimming through the ocean, got their board under their arm, going for a surf. And when I look at them now and I see that there's still some shoulders to them, there's a little bit of muscle here and there, that they don't have a belly that protrudes too far, they still look lean and lithe, and you go, well, that's a lifestyle choice. At the age of 70, where you could sit at home and probably go outside twice a week, you choose to get up and go exercise and be active. And I bet you that's how you've lived your entire life. And the result is, a fit and happy 60, 70-year-old. So, they're my new role models. They're the ones that inspire me.
Do you think our generation is exposed to role models that are not good for our health?
Yeah, so I'm not anti-social media. I love this connection where you and I can have a chat, and if it helps someone else, then I think it's a fabulous tool. My wife and I both have family overseas living in other countries. It's an amazing way to stay connected. We were up in Canada in the mountains, and my mum rang, and we're looking over a gorge down at the water below, and my boys are there with her on the phone, and they're showing her everything that we're seeing on this hike. So it was as if she was there, even though she's all the way over here in Australia. So the social media, when used correctly, is just an amazing way to connect people. But when people are in it, I guess, for a selfish reason, where it's there to make money or it's there for vanity, then you start to see where it goes askew, where, you know, those influencers with whatever it is that they're using, their gimmick, and they're going to push and push it because that's what pays their bills. Yeah. I think we always knew that when we walked into a shop. This is a shop. A shop is here to sell. So I go in prepared. Yeah, no, thank you. I'm not interested, not looking for that. And you just move on your way and you make your own choices. But the problem now is we use our social media as our news source, our information, our learning, and our connection to people. And we're being sold to the entire time that we're on this.
Yeah, it's definitely scary for young ones growing up. How do you, as a father, I guess, protect your young boys coming up and growing up in this industry and educating them on the dangers, the pressures, and also what they could experience?
Yeah, no, I don't have an answer that most people would like. I'm old school. They don't have phones yet. We are that busy that we tend to don't have a lot of time in front of the TV and so forth. Actually, the rule is we don't watch TV Monday to Thursday.
Wow, that's awesome.
Thursday night footy comes on, and Dad bends the rules. But no, more so that if you want to live a busy lifestyle and they're up early and they swim and train, and then we have football and nippers and all those different things, and then you have schoolwork, which is as important, and you want to get that done. Well, the first half of the week is be busy. Then the back end of the week, the option is there that, you know, we can watch TV and watch movies, but the sort of tweak in it is that that's when we're social. You know, where we're out and about with friends, and yeah, they have their friends, they have parties to go to, and then we also have our club sport, which always finishes in a social gathering where game's over, but we're still here 4 hours later because the kids are running around playing with each other. Yeah. The one, Ash, that I use as a comment, I think, and this is just my opinion, I just want my children to learn what I call social IQ. And social IQ is not about being the smartest and not about being the most popular. It's about connecting to other people. Really listen, yeah. Then try to find a way that you can connect to them personally. And when you have those connections and that, let it be a two-way flow. Like when you're sad or hurt, you share that. If someone else is sad or hurt, you be aware of it. Feel the room and start to learn. What people say or how they look isn't always the way they feel. So if you can have some of that social IQ, I think what you'll do is, you'll be happier, but maybe you can help other people around you.
Encouraging those messages quite early on to be open with you guys about, you know, if they're hurt or if they're feeling sad. Do you reckon your kids will grow up to eventually be able to open up about their feelings and really kind of break down that men's stigma of not talking about your feelings?
That's the hope, isn't it? You live in the same type of family. Like you think about what you can share with your mum and dad and so on. Not all families are like that, Ash. Like it truly is a special place. And sometimes it hurts. Sometimes, you know, the truth isn't what everyone wants to hear, and it can be raw and leave a little bit of an emotional scar. But it's better than living a masquerade your whole life where you thought you knew someone. And this is the one that scares me. Like young men, in terms of suicide, is on the increase. And during my time of coaching Queensland Cup, where you're looking at 18 to 30-year-olds, in that 5-year period, there were 6 players across the competition who all committed suicide. And if you went and asked the coaches and their teammates and so on, they would tell you that all of them were the life of the party, the one that we all wanted to be around the most, the one that we thought was the most confident, the one that had it all together. And they just masquerade it the best. So because you don't have that connectiveness to someone to say something, then they just keep burying it deeper and deeper until one day, yeah, at one moment, that's all it takes.
How do you help someone like that then, that you're not aware? You have no idea. They put on such a strong, brave face. how do you know to help them or support them, or what can we do?
I don't have an answer, Ash. All I know is that I've become more aware that you want to keep checking and feeling. Don't just dismiss that, Zimmo's always good forevermore. Think that Ash is good forevermore. Be aware of what's going on in their life as well. I think that's probably, again, so there's another one that you can utilize your social media streams for, but sometimes, like all things, we pick and choose what we show. So everyone shows the highlight reel. They don't show you what the negatives that go through a week or a month or a year. But I think you can almost, if you know someone pretty well and you see what's being posted and you read between the lines of some of the words, if someone's just not quite on, if they're a little off, I think. And then rather than send a message, I think that's where you need to take initiative. It's like, I was worried about Ash after we spoke today. I jump in my car and I drive around your house. Knock, knock. Hey, Ash, just didn't feel right when we were chatting today. Are you okay? And that's what your mum did, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
She felt it. She knew.
Yeah.
So that's all you can do. But I think if we become more aware, if we talk to our children about being more aware of others, then things like empathy and that develop without realizing it. You don't have to call it empathy. You have a sense, social sense, and go, oh, they were quiet today. That's usually the one I would say. There's another great quote. It's the people who really know you know when you are silent more than when you are spoken. And it just means that those moments where you've gone internal and there's something going on, they recognize it, and then they're there to help you if they can. So
do you, like, 6 players in a matter of 5 years, like, that's incredible. Like, no one can even fathom how many.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah.
2 of them were 21 at the time. One of them had just played for his nation and was on an NRL contract and was playing to earn his right to be an NRL player.
Yeah. It's always, I don't know, but it just seems the ones, as you said, that have everything going for them, the ones that just seem to slip between the lines. And as a coach, how do you help players, I guess, also understand that there's more to footy, and I guess that you need to have a life besides football? I think football becomes a big identity for a lot of players, that even men, when they work so hard and then they retire, they lose their identity. How do you help players and even men, I guess, find an identity rather than, putting everything into the one thing?
Yeah. So we just got back from living in Japan for 5 months, and that was exactly the thing that I witnessed. Like I admire Japanese culture. They are hardworking and honest people, but they work so hard to get out of primary school. So they go to primary school for 6 days a week, from 7:30 till 4 is them either on their way to school, to start school, to be at school. And then they do juku, which is a cram school afterwards, to get into a good junior high school. And then that happens again, the cram school. So they go to school until 4, and then from 5 to 9 p.m. they study again at these small schools, tutor schools, to get into the right high school, to get into the right university, from that university to get into the company. And the company maximizes what they get out of them for the 40 years that they've got, 45 years that they have. And then when they're retired, it's thank you very much. Moving on, you were an asset. Wow. So their self-worth and identity, the pride of their school, the pride of their university, and the pride of the company that drives them. And then one day the rug's pulled out from underneath you. And for them, because they commit so much time, they work away from their families, they don't take holidays, that they're left empty, that there's nothing there. Like, what did I achieve in my 45 years? Now, in sport's the same. So they get to that point, as you said, it's all that they are, their identity. The greatest thing I experienced was coaching at the semi-professional level. You saw people who still had to work to play. You know, they get paid to play, but they had to work a job. So they had friends outside of footy. They had distractions. And then more so, we had the opportunity to go to a country like Papua New Guinea, which is third world. They have almost nothing. And yet the smiles on their faces and the appreciation they showed when our players would give jerseys, clothes. I remember Jamal Fogarty, who wasn't an NRL player at the time, gave his boots away. But he would have paid for those boots himself, and he gave them some kid in the crowd. And that, to that kid, that would have been his greatest ever gift. Yeah. So humbleness comes from appreciation. When you have gratitude for what you truly have, then I think then you put it all in perspective instead of having it distorted, which is what happens if you go from being a teenage kid straight into a professional world where you're gifted all this. And then one day when that ends, or you can feel it threatened, all these negative ideas and thoughts get in your head.
And I guess that can't be good as well. Your entire life, you're planning for the future, you're studying to get into university to potentially have a great career, then you're training so hard to get into the NRL team to then earn this much money. Your whole life, we come back to, we're not living in the now, we're constantly planning for that day that we make it big, or we get that dream job or that dream house. Like, that can't be good for your mental health either. And
again, they do that, and maybe they do achieve everything. You know, like that's the joy of it, that they are good enough and might get to the level. But then they get to the level, and when they look back on and reflect, they go, I didn't enjoy that period of time because I was so worried and anxious about it. Now I don't look back on it in that golden light. And yeah, everyone we're talking to here, if they haven't had that experience of, you know, striving for something, just think about high school. In high school, you were worried about what happened yesterday, you know, so there's a regret of something. Then go forward, the anxiety of what's going to happen tomorrow, and you go, I didn't get to enjoy today, where I sat at lunch with some good friends in a nice part of the world. School's 9 to 3. It's not labor intensive. Kids at our school, they can do surfing as a subject. They can play their sport as a subject. Yeah, but more so than anything, you can just hang out with people who are your peers and your friends. You go, that's a lot better than most people's jobs.
Yeah, and you just miss it because, yeah, you said you're stressing about the external things you can't control. Wow. What advice could you give to an up-and-coming player that is entering this environment?
I know if you just say enjoy, that's not going to be enough because they're driven anyway. But to make it more of a coach delivery, I would just say, just focus on where you are now. You know, like my young bloke gets excited not to be an NRL player. He wants to come to PBC, but he's only 10. He's grade 4. I'm like, that's great, mate, and I hope you get that chance. But just enjoy playing under 9s or enjoy playing under 10s at the moment, because you're only going to be under 9s or under 10s once. And, you know, the rules are different. You're playing with a different group of kids. It's a fun stage of footy where you don't have serious injuries, you know, generally. Just enjoy it. Kicking a ball, chasing a ball, just play. Have a sausage at the end of it and walk away with a big smile on your face. And then when you finish that, then the next year will come and the next year will come. And yeah, when you look back, hopefully then you'll think of that childhood period. Well, I enjoyed all of it, or most of it at least. And who knows? You know, if you're still playing at 15, still playing at 13, set your goals. This is a school I want to go to. Yeah, I want to play at this team, but don't get ahead of yourself.
Yeah. And I know we spoke about a lot today, but is there one thing that you could mention that was a highlight in terms of one thing a player could take away, one thing a man could take away, a young boy could take away from this that you believe is really essential to not only just being a man, but being a good human?
If at the end of the day you had to list your achievements in life, yeah, whether you played NRL, played for your country, made this much money, whatever it might be, and one of the things was to be of good character and to be loved by many, because, people who like you, but like you for the real you, that is love. We're not talking romantic, emotional love. Like you get that in a team environment. That's why sport's beautiful. You can be in a team with someone that you respect their character of bravery and strength. Craig Ferrugia was an example of someone like that for me. And I would tell you, I loved him. He was such a good person that I feel lucky that I got to know him in his life before he passed. So if you are one of those type of people that other people feel that way about you at the end of your life, then you've lived a good life. And no one's perfect. We're all going to have moments where we stray, make a mistake, and so forth. So when we go back to our win-loss column, just remember, I either win or I learn. I never lose. So when I've done the wrong thing, own up and go apologize, or try your best to rectify it, or go out of your way then to pay it forward to someone else. Teach your lesson, share the story. So yeah, I just think that's thinking forward, but thinking forward in a way that shapes me now. When I'm 85 or whatever it is, and I'm at the end of my journey, how do I want to be looked back upon? So then that shapes what I do right now, in my conversation to you, and the next person I talk to, in the way I treat my kids. Yeah, that's awesome. It for me.
That's great. Thank you so much for coming on today and starting that conversation with us during our Marching with Men month. I very muchly appreciate it. I know that's not really a word, but thank you.
That's okay. I'm not an English teacher, so
that's
grammar's not important.
Great. Well, I thank you, yes, very much. And I'm sure everybody, if you have been to a Seagulls game, you would have seen Zimmo running around madly or sitting by himself analysing the game. So this season you will probably find him somewhere up in the stands watching down below, I believe.
Yeah, no, back at the club. This is my 10th year at the club, involved with the ladies, the women's rugby league this year, which is amazing because there again, just have met a group of women who outstanding group in terms of their character. Like I can feel their affection for each other, and I can see how hard they work. And there's no money in the game for them yet. There's maybe an opportunity in the future, but there's just as likely not. They just want to get out there and play the game because, that forever they've loved it and not been able to play it. So they're just appreciative of now there's an opportunity to play at a high level with other quality players. You can see the joy just even when they're at training. It's a great refresher, a great humbler to be back in the game.
Oh, well, I'm sure the game loves having you back as well. Everybody here in Australia, well, in Tweedheads definitely wanted you back. I know me personally, I did. But
thank you, Ash.
Thank you so much for coming on today, Zimmo. And thank you everyone out there for tuning in for another Secret Sunday session today.
Can I just add one thing, please, Ash?
Of course you can.
So my point to all the listeners here is I've known Ash since the age of 14.
Yeah.
And our families have overlapped, and I've seen her journey and been close to it. And I've said this at your 18th, Ash, but you inspire me. When I use words that I try and help other people with, I need a source to go to. What brings emotion into me? And you and your bravery and your courage and how you continue to surprise people with the levels that you can go to. You inspire me, Ash. And even this, how you're trying to help others at your tender age, you're beyond unselfish, because I'm sure at your age, all I was thinking about was me. It's only when you have maybe your own children, you start to share that love and thought of others. You're so far ahead of all of us, Ash. I love watching your journey.
It's getting hot.
No.
Thank you so much. No, I really appreciate it. And look, I couldn't have got through what I got through without your support at such a critical time of my diagnosis. I mean, you were there in times when I shut everyone out, but you were very persistent and just kept helping me all through the way. And that's why I admire your conversations and our connection, because you're a beautiful human being, but you're more than that. You're a great friend and a role model for me. And it is, you've shaped, your impact in my life has shaped me for who I am today as well. So that's why I admire you as well. So, but stop, because I'm going to start crying and it's bad. Oh, anyway, thank you for that. I really do appreciate that. You're a kind soul and you've got a beautiful family and we love you. So thank you.
Thank you, Ash. Straight back at you.
Okay, now I promise all the sobby stuff is over. We will end it here. And thank you everyone for joining us for another Secret Sunday session. And we will catch you next month.